Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in to the METUS Tech Show. On today's episode, we will be talking about City Multi-Startup. But first, the METUS Minute. Today's METUS Minute is about connecting to maintenance tool. When connecting maintenance tool to City Multi equipment, you will need a maintenance tool converter and a USB-B to USB-A converter. You will also need to download the maintenance tool software on your Windows computer. The software can be found on MitsubishiPro.com by searching maintenance tool or on our mylinkdrive.com. Connect the alligator clips to anywhere MNet can be found, like the outdoor unit, indoor unit, and local or central controllers. The USB-B end of the cable will go into the maintenance tool converter, while the USB-A cable will plug into your computer. Be sure to make these connections prior to opening the software. Once you have made the connections, open the maintenance tool software and click the drop-down for MN converter. You will need to select the model number of the maintenance tool converter you are using and the COM port that you are using. Typically, if connections were made prior to opening the software, the COM port should automatically be assigned. If not, locate the COM port with USB in parentheses, as that will typically be the COM port to use. Next, click the select button and you can begin your search. On M&P equipment, you will need the serial cables, but the same software. Use the maintenance tool help guide to determine which connector you will use for the equipment you are working on. Start with the equipment off, make your connections, then open the software. Here, you will use the serial cable drop-down and select the equipment you're connecting to. The software will prompt you as to when to turn the unit on. Thanks for listening. Now let's start the show.
The METUS Tech Show.
Welcome to the METUS Tech Show, a show for HVAC professionals by HVAC professionals.
I like how you guys bounce back and forth between heat pump talk and food talk.
The METUS Tech Show.
Mitsubishi.
So last night, we went to Taco Mac. Had some wings. What'd you guys have?
I had a bunless burger.
A bunless burger.
It was pretty good.
Yeah.
He had the onions, and he had Gouda cheese, which I love.
That's a Gouda cheese.
It's a Gouda cheese.
What'd you have on the side?
I had potato...
Tater tots.
Tater tots.
That's what it was.
Yes.
Yep.
And
They
I
looked
love
really good.
tater tots. Yep. And I was dipping them in buffalo sauce. That was good.
Yeah. What about you, Gary? What'd you have?
Wings.
Wings. Did you get the roasted ones?
I got the roasted with the honey chipotle.
Honey chipotle. Oh, he nailed it.
He did it. I didn't have to correct him this time.
Yeah. How were the roasted? I didn't try them.
They were crispy.
Yeah.
The outsides were crispy. They weren't burnt or anything. They were pretty good shape. So they weren't dry. They were
Right.
definitely moist. So
Yeah.
it was a good choice.
Yeah, I
Go to
saw
a
they
wing
had
joint. Get wings.
Yeah.
Love wings.
Yeah, the place is called Taco Mac, and it's a wing joint.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about you, Scott?
Actually, I wasn't able to make it.
Oh, yeah, you're right. I forgot.
But you had to eat dinner, though. What did you eat for
You're always there
dinner?
in
For
spirit.
dinner.
I actually made myself a New York strip.
Ooh,
Yeah, he sent me pictures of it.
he did.
So when he's like, hey, where'd you guys end up going? I said, we went to Taco Mac. And he's
Oh,
like,
you're cold,
don't you
bro.
wish you were at my house? He's got these great steaks on the
you
grill.
are cold, bro.
Yeah. They were good. New York is not my favorite. It was what's on sale type deal. Meat's expensive these days.
I guarantee
Outrageous.
you it was better than the flat burger I was having.
Yeah, but my
What's your
favorite's
favorite
ribeye.
cut? What's your favorite cut?
Ribeye, hands down.
Ribeye?
Hands
Yeah,
down.
everybody's
Yeah, they
pretty
make
good.
cheesesteaks out of ribeye.
I like Pismo.
Yeah, Juan, we know you like the Pismo. It doesn't exist.
It does. Yes, it does.
I know. I think we did end up finding it, but
Yeah.
What'd you end up having?
I got wings too. I always get them dry, and
yeah,
then
you
I
do
get the
get 'em
dipping
dry, don't you?
sauces just because
Yeah.
I like to try different ones.
Yeah,
so
no,
I
same
got what was it? Some sweet Asian, and then the honey chipotle.
It's funny.
that Gary got.
When we go out to eat, we always get the sweet Asian, no matter
I
where
know.
we
I don't
go.
know what it is. It's
I
just
know.
the thing is you would have hated these sauces. I bet
Is that hot?
they were watery, like runny. They weren't as like
They
you
were
got
not
them.
thick.
You got your wings dressed,
I
right?
got 'em- Is that the correct term?
Like they
Dressed?
were tossed. They were tossed.
yeah.
tossed. Yeah, dressed,
That's- They're probably tossed and also like put on the fryer or something.
Yeah.
they heat it
So
up.
when you get them dry, they just give you the sauce on the side, and like we go to Miller's all the time, and it's like a nice thick sweet sauce. these were like runny, like really like liquidy.
Times are tough.
And it,
Yeah.
it made it.
Trying to make it
I didn't like it
last.
as much.
Times are tough, and they all
Trying
enjoy
to
it.
make it last.
Trying to scrimp on that.
Just like the
watering
soap.
it down.
It's true.
All right. Well, thanks everybody for tuning into the METUS Tech Show today. Because we have the luxury of Gary, our startup king.
Yes.
I figured we could cover just the City Multi startup, beginning to end, what we expect from a contractor in the field. But Gary also has a checklist for things before you even get to the point of starting the equipment. So I thought maybe Gary could walk us through all that stuff, and we'll interject with some of the things that maybe we've experienced ourselves. But I just, we get asked about it a lot, and what's the best practices, things like that. So I figured we could get into it.
Yeah, when I think before we even get to a startup, and when we're out in the jobs doing walkthroughs before anything has been installed, is that everybody has a understanding of what to do with the installation. That's why people attend our class, to get the essentials of how to
Right.
install our systems and start them up. But when I was out doing commissioning on jobs, so I'd be walking the job site, and you're looking up at the roof, looking at the outdoor units. Want to make sure that those are installed high enough in the snow belts that they're above the anticipated snow that can happen in that area.
Yeah.
Where I'm at in the Philadelphia area, we can get a 10-inch snowfall. So we kind of look at, in that region, at least 18 inches above the roof line.
Yeah.
We're also looking at your installation for if your systems are twinned. And what's that magic number out there?
20 inches.
20 inches.
20 inches, 19, 11, 16.
No, I say 20. I
Yeah,
don't even
go
say
right to the
19 or
case.
whatever.
I like round numbers.
I'm like, no, 20. Yeah.
People will remember 20. They won't remember
They remember
19, 11,
20, yep.
16.
So we teach 11, 19, 11, 16. Anyway, make sure that they're twinned properly.
Yeah.
That's a killer of systems. When you go to a job, and going back quite a few years ago, I ruined somebody's Christmas. They had 3 systems installed at a police station in South Jersey, and one system was fine. The other 2 systems, they basically had stubs coming out of the twinning kit.
Oh, no.
6 inches on one, 12 inches on the other.
So let me ask you this, Gary, because we're going to, I get this a lot. So what happens if it's less than 20 inches?
Well, think of it this way. Been in traffic,
Yeah, exactly.
2 lanes going into 1 lane. The longer you have to zipper it in, better for the system.
Better
So
flow.
that's what they tested at. And
So a longer merge is
a
better.
longer merge. Yep, that's the best analogy you can have for a twinning kit. So, so after looking at the installation, you walk around the building. It's like, all right, where's your piping at? I'm looking to see that the piping, if it's inside the building, and if it's new construction, what kind of environment's in a new construction job?
Dusty and
Dust.
yeah.
The parking lot, there's no doors, dust is from the streets blowing in, or the parking lot, and making sure that the piping that they're going to use to install the equipment is either capped or it's been pinched, or there's tape on the ends, just so that dirt and dust does not get in the piping. That's
You're
like the first
protecting the
kill.
piping.
Protecting the piping, and what are you doing that for, The other thing I'd look out for, once piping is done and they're getting ready to do their pressure test, I would go around and look for their tanks. Like, what are you doing that for? And if you ever walk up to a tank and see a gauge that's 500 psi, how can they pressure test?
Yeah.
You should see the local people's faces when you come up and it's like, I was like, yeah, okay, explain that for the next time I come back. It's the little things, of trying to ensure that we do a proper installation of the equipment.
Yeah.
So when we get to our startup, everything is good.
Yeah. Can I ask you a question really quick, actually, about that? Because I've been actually increasingly been asked this question, and you were doing these startups. When you were doing the refrigerant piping inspecting, did you ever keep an eye out for 45s in the piping? Did you have any thought on that?
Going back quite a few years, I would look to see if they had 45s, and there's 45s out there. I mean, years ago, we weren't as educated on the type of ARC the construction of a fitting, and we would see 45s. one particular job that I was at, they had engineering actually come in because they had to go around beams.
Yeah.
And this job they did was in an older building that they wanted to expose all the piping, and they did not want to use any kind of soft copper. So they had to have 45s. So they put them in, and they had to make sure that there was a certain amount of long distance between the fitting
Right.
to allow for any kind of pressure buildup not to hit that fitting at a certain angle.
Yeah.
And would you anchor? Can you potentially anchor the 45 in certain places?
No, they were basically the pipe was suspended.
Suspended,
It wasn't the
Okay, I see what you
45
mean.
wasn't anchored. But
Okay.
they over several beautiful installation, but they had to make sure that if it was going underneath a beam, that they had a certain amount of distance, and that was sent through engineering for approval.
Yeah, and there's
Something
things
I
like
would approve.
expansion loops they bring up and stuff.
Yeah,
too,
they did some different things in the piping.
Yeah,
so.
because I've had people in class. They'll say, how many when we're talking about DSB or something, they'll say like, how many 45s do you consider a bend? And I'm like, ideally, you don't use any 45s.
Right.
45s.
And why is that, Bran? I mean,
Well, basically, with the construction of the 45s, the inner walls
Yeah.
tend to be not as
Right.
thick as you would with just a long sweep 90. So collision points, and especially if you've got long runs terminating with a 45, you can just get that high velocity refrigerant. And, I've seen pictures somebody just sent. I think it was Ralph.
Yeah,
Did Ralph just send some
Yes.
pictures
Oh,
of
yeah.
some 45s that were completely blown out.
Yep.
Correct.
Just blown apart from that
I have
high-speed
in my
refrigerant.
holster when people talk about 45s. Here's some pictures of 45s and systems. So, I have a lot of pictures from installations, and people
Yeah.
say, "Hey, here's a 45 in there." I was like, "Yeah, it's before we kind of really understood what 45s are all about." And
Yeah.
now it's just say no.
Yeah, extra precautions.
Yeah, but so looking at our piping, once that's all established, I always used to harp on while you're doing your installation is to keep track of what you're installing. Keep track of what's the model number I'm actually putting in, because we know how. If you go back looking at the MNet schematic and everything, that once you follow that, they might pull a fast one on you and have some different equipment installed. So make sure that outdoor unit is the same model number. Make sure the indoor units are matching up to your DSB. It all comes into play of how you install the equipment.
Right.
Record your serial numbers.
Yeah.
We don't need to really record the serial numbers on the indoor units now for a warranty, but it's a good idea to know what those serial numbers are.
Right. Having a
before you-
log somewhere.
So
Commissioning.
there was a sheet
Yes.
that I was handed to way back, like in 2015, Mitsubishi document that how to keep track of your installation, outdoor units, indoor units, branch controllers, serial numbers, pipe lengths, all those, addressing.
I always
ports.
tell these students, you can never document enough.
You can never document enough. Yep. I've had guys use that sheet. I had guys reproduce it on an Excel spreadsheet, loose leaf,
Yep.
paper, copier paper, cardboard, a chunk of cardboard inside the
Stone tablet.
whatever.
No, it's funny you say
Chisel
that.
and hammer.
It's funny you say that. I had a guy in class that one time used a brand new install. It was two separate systems.
Yeah.
Two BCs, branch controllers, one on the fourth floor, one on the first floor for what it's worth. They installed it, refrigerant, everything else, and both went off on alarm because of one letter. Because of our BC main,
Wow.
it can handle more of the BTU capacity than a smaller one,
Correct.
right? And they installed it in the wrong location.
Yeah.
How about that?
They had to recover, cut it out, and then swap out the BCs. He goes, "That was not fun."
And
Well,
that's a good point, Scott, because on the model numbers,
Yes.
if you've got each character means something.
Right.
And that when you look it up, you've got to look at every character.
Yeah, whether it's a K or a J.
That's
Yes.
what it
branch
was.
controller.
One-
The other thing too that I was saying that makes that a good point is that if you don't do it initially, right, and you're not keeping track of it as you go, like Gary just said, if you do make a mistake, the means to fix that are never going to be easy or simple or fun. By
that's
tracking
a fact.
everything as you go, you might catch it before you've made your final connection. You've already, done your nitrogen test. You've already done a triple evac. You've already added your trim charge. Then you realize, I have an error code. That's way worse than just on the way through taking down a note of what the model serial number are to make sure it matches up to your DSB.
Yeah. I've seen some things out there that were outdoor units in the wrong spot. Y series installed where there's should be an R2 series. Electrical is a big problem. If you're not looking and make sure that the electrical doesn't match up to what your plans are, people are just hoisting these things up and plopping them into place. And I always say, it's like a Chevrolet and a GMC. From the outside, they look exactly the same. It's what's under the hood.
I know there's a lot of listeners right now like, we'll do that. But
Be
until you're
surprised.
in
They don't do it.
Exactly.
We'll be right back. Hey, listeners, if you like the METUS Tech Show, you should check out our YouTube channel called the METUS Training Network. That's METUS Training Network. Head on over to the METUS Training Network for tons of videos and programming made for HVAC professionals just like you. We've got technical training tips, HVAC program updates, and episodes of our new HVAC talk show called The Comfort Zone. Of course, you also get to catch up on more episodes of the METUS Tech Show as well. Head on over to YouTube and subscribe to the METUS Training Network today. Now, back to the METUS Tech Show.
Be surprised. So after you're looking at the piping, make sure that's correct. Just checking wiring, making sure you're using the right size control wiring.
Yep.
Make sure everything's landed properly. You're using the shield. I have pictures and pictures of jobs where shields were not landed because somebody, we're not following directions on what gauge to use up there. So we're using our 16 two-conductor stranded shielded wire, but hey, they ran like 18 gauge, 18.3.
18.3 solid core.
Well, 18.3.
Missed that wire.
That's what was on the bid set of the plans, not on the actual construction documents.
Yeah, my favorite phrase to that, Gary, is it works until it doesn't.
Exactly.
It works until it doesn't.
Thing will probably start up and run.
Yeah. Then when it gets to addressing it, make sure that everybody has everything's addressed properly. Port assignments, keeping track of where's that line set going, and it can be very simple. A piece of tape on a branch controller, telling what room you're going to.
Thank you.
What room you're going to? What port it is on, and where's it going? Just simple things like that.
It is.
Yeah.
You'd be surprised if people don't.
Hey, I tell my installers, if you do that, your service guys will buy you a drink.
Yeah.
And the problem with that is everybody sees that as extra work, but that will save you time down the drain.
down
Absolutely.
line,
Yeah. Even tagging your control wiring.
Yes.
Coming from, whatever tag it's from going to, have a track.
Yeah, that's a good point. Where the actual
where it's
daisy
going.
chain's coming and going.
Yeah. Just
Have you
little
ever
things.
had one of those job sites where the addressing or port assignments got messed up after the fact? And then you have to go back and try to find which
After
one
the
is
fact.
set up wrong?
Yeah. You start a job up, everything works great, and all of a sudden something's going on. One of the things that has happened after the fact, you go in, you commission a job, they start the job, everything's great, and all of a sudden they got problems with we can't structure a wire, but our transmission boosters that we have to install. It's like, well, what the heck happened here? You know, it's like they had capacity. They ended up like installing a 6-ton or 8-ton ducted unit, and they lost the voltage drop across of the TB5s. And well, where'd that come from? So people say, I just added in, okay, but then they don't realize down the road what kind of problems they have.
Yeah.
Didn't have this problem before. All of a sudden, it's starting it up.
The reason I asked is because when we're in Georgia for a team meeting and got into the training center, I wanted to test something on the R2 system in the training center here. And there was one indoor unit that had an address set as a BS, so a sub-branch controller. That was what the address was set for. There's 5 indoor units on that system, and I had to try to figure out which one was addressed wrong. I was about ready to throw the ladder across the room trying to figure out which one was addressed wrong. So I could only imagine in an actual setting, not a training center, with all of these units buried behind drop ceiling.
Above
absolute
ceilings
nightmare.
and all that.
Yeah, absolute nightmare.
So, Gary, you mentioned, obviously across our MNet, roughly 29 DC, right? What would be the best? Would you recommend going to the last unit on the line, checking what your voltage is there?
If you know the daisy chain, go to that last of course, we can go down to 24, but that's like flirting
That's
with
what I was going to
disaster.
ask you. What do you?
You'd have
The
to
voltage
check-
drop.
you would have
what
to
are
check.
you? Yeah. What are you looking for? We get if I read 25. Is that okay?
Yeah,
Or
it's okay, but
is that
I don't
when you're
know.
playing with? See, is this where you may
Disaster.
add in a? Okay.
yeah, because it doesn't come up a whole lot. I mean, it's
Okay.
like it's hardly ever people install those things, but
Correct.
when they have to install them, they should be keep it in the back of their mind. It's like if I have a problem, and what do you think the best way to check to see if you have enough juice for all that? You're going to go to your maintenance tool. You're going to
Yeah.
See if
You're going to plug a maintenance tool. You're going to take a look at all your indoor units. You're going to add up what's in there and find out if you could potentially have a
you can see
problem.
it. Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
So I do know, we recommend anything over 32 units on a single MNet. They want you
30,
to throw a
yeah,
booster.
that's another one of those things. 32. It's 32 devices,
Devices. Yeah.
Right.
and a device is a factor. I mean,
right.
yeah, they come up with a better word than that, but it's not.
Right.
People think, oh, it's 32 pieces. Nah, it's not. It's 32 devices that can incorporate a different voltage drop depending on what it is.
Yes.
Yeah.
Power factor. It's a power factor.
Yeah, we have that chart, and some of them, they're not indoor units, but they have some of the largest draws are not indoor units. They're just components that might be on the
Right.
air,
God, everything adds, So, just the little things about that. So before you're even starting the job up, you're going to have your addressing in order, dip switches. I bring up in class all the time about SW1-1 and SW1-9, the two that are really important during startup, especially for a ducted unit.
Mm-hmm.
Like ducted unit, if you don't activate SW1-1, what do you get?
Well, it senses that from the return.
Return air. Do you really want return air in a ducted unit, to control our source of control and temperature in a space? Yeah. So that's when people don't do that. What happens is, it starts up, everything's great. People start moving in. They say, hey, the temperature space just doesn't work out too well. And then always have them take a look at SW1-9 in case, there's a power outage, If you don't turn SW1-9 on, that means that the power will not turn back on that individual indoor unit. Somebody has to physically go up there and
Turn it off and turn it back on.
it's a recovery.
Yeah.
Right.
So
Recovery from power.
SW1-1 would be for sensing at the controller.
Right.
And then SW1-9 is for automatic power.
Automatic
recovery.
power.
And you can't just change that at the controller?
Nah.
Do you still have to do it at the dip switch?
It's a dip switch, yeah. It's a hard setting. A whole lot easier doing it on the ground,
Yeah, before you
absolutely,
put it
before
up.
you hang it.
Put it up.
I say the same thing about addressing.
Yes.
Right? You should be walking
Do it
around
on
with
the
that
ground.
DSB. You should already have the dial set, your
Before
port
you
assignment
hang
set
it.
before that thing even goes up in the air.
This thing called a Sharpie. Everybody know what Sharpies are? If you lay the job out and put a Sharpie and
Yeah, that's a
write
good
down, a lot of contractors, before the rugs get in, you got concrete on the floor, take a can of spray paint what's going
All
to
the
go
addresses.
above them with the address and the port already.
Yeah,
That is smart.
That's a good point.
It's good contractors that are out there that do it all the time. That's the people that this job's going to go real smooth.
Yeah.
That versus going south.
Yeah.
Yeah. So check your other thing you should check out there is surprisingly enough is that do you have fuses in your outdoor units when your fuse disconnect for service? Are the fuses installed? Check that. Are your disconnects? Are they installed? Everything, wiring. But once everything that's done, one of the keys that we preach out there is now you're ready to turn the system on. How long do we wait?
Yeah, right. You got to give it 24 hours, what we recommend, or
Yeah.
12 hours, excuse me.
Well,
12 hours.
12 hours.
Yeah.
But
So people
realistically, if you start at 8, you're going home, coming back the morning.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, 12 hours sufficient. Now, from where we're at, up in the north, and it's cold and it's wintertime, that's
Longer is
24
better.
hours.
Yeah, as long as
Longer
possible.
is better.
Yeah. And what I used to do is get a job site. You're there, 7:15, plug in maintenance tool. What do we have maintenance tool? We have thermistors that are going to tell us what the temperature of that shell core that.
TH15. Yeah.
Not
And for those that may not know, Gary, why do we do that? Why do we recommend that?
it warms up the oil in the compressor.
Okay.
Yeah. We call it preheat control, but it's
Preheat
to
control.
substitute for crankcase heater, right?
Crankcase,
We
yeah.
heat up the
Trickle
windings
charge.
of
The
the.
trickle charge. Yeah. So many a times I go to a job, it's like, that compressor's like 50 degrees. Did you have this on? Like, they're getting in before you got there, and they're turning it on real quick.
Yeah.
You know, it's like,
In
hey,
fact-
I'm going to go to the roof. I'm just going to plug in maintenance tool. I'll find out what my temperatures are. You know?
If you look at maintenance tool, you'll see IH. IH is telling you whether or not preheat control is on or not.
Yeah.
So if you ever see IH in the bottom right corner of your outdoor unit icons, that's telling you preheat is activated.
Preheat control.
Yeah. So once we're ready to, now there's startup and then there's commissioning.
Mm-hmm.
You know, startup is getting the bugs out.
Yeah.
And before you do anything, you're ready to go. Now you're gonna populate your indoor addressing. Make sure everything that's on your EdNet schematic matches what you're populating into that's your first line of defense.
100%.
Once that's all clear, so if you have addresses 1 to 10, and all of a sudden 4 doesn't pop up, before you start it up, you have to find out where number 4 is.
Yeah.
Probably address 40.
Yeah.
Or if you have 40 on there. Yeah.
What I always also say is ME controllers. So I say, you don't necessarily have to be 100% sure of the addresses, although you should. What's most important is that when you do your initial address search, when you first start up that equipment, that however many MEs are on that job site show up on that maintenance tool search. Yeah. Because the amount of times that an ME controller is wired into TB15 instead of on TB5, right? So it's a different language. And the problem is that you may even walk up to that controller and it'll be on. It's got 12 volts instead of the 29 it needs. It'll say waiting for information from indoor units. So you'll see it with the green light on. You'll think, okay, ME's powered, we're good. But if it's on the wrong terminal block, it's not going to show up on the search. And you'll do the whole startup. You'll get through the whole thing, have no idea, because everything you do as far as running the equipment is not through the controllers. It's through maintenance tool.
Exactly.
So then you get the call 12 hours later. Yeah, I can't turn my unit on or off. You show up, it's on the wrong.
It's on the wrong.
Yep.
It's
Absolutely.
It's that assumption word. It assumes that it's good to go.
Yep.
So everything's good to go. All right, you have all your addresses, your MEs, your outdoor units, everything, your branch controllers, everything lines up great. Now we open up maintenance tool, and let's see what our next step is. So once maintenance tool comes up, and I give out my number. I have people that call me up a year and a half later. I'm stuck on a job. I was like, hey, I'm not really available for troubleshooting, but I'll pull you off that roof. And it's like, what's wrong with it? Something's not operating right. If it's an R2 system, I'm looking at the line that goes right up above on the system info, our connected information. If they're all zeros, what do you have? No ports assigned.
Right.
So you have to check that out. So once everything is good and you're ready to go and you have maintenance tool hooked up and you're ready to fire it up, some of the things that I would do first thing is that I would go and change and make sure the date. I timestamp the outdoor units, and you'd be surprised. If you don't, out of the box, the unit doesn't know what time it is until you timestamp it.
Yep.
And once you timestamp it, if you do not timestamp it, the system's not going to work correctly. It's that when you have a fault code, it's going to show up as like a whole bunch of numbers that don't make sense. And once you set it, you're set.
Right.
Yeah.
Even if you power down the unit, which is what I was so surprised by. If you power down that unit, there's still an internal clock somewhere. There's small amounts of draw that must be
so it is able
that.
to maintain that clock accuracy.
Yeah. So you power it back on. I mean, in our training center, right? I set the time and date. I shut down the unit for the week. Come back the next week.
And it's
turn it on. Still got the same time.
Yeah. Time and date. I check. Go in and make sure that you have your system info. But what is really nice now is that we don't have to do that additional step because maintenance tool automatically saves that system info for you.
Yeah.
Or connected information. So that's one less step. But I'd also check the malfunction log.
Yeah.
And some of the nice changes in maintenance tool is they have that, as one of our service manager says, the stack of nickels, which is the last icon on the row. Before, you would have to toggle back and forth and in and out of maintenance tool to find out what your malfunction log is.
Which can take up to 2 minutes to get in and out of that screen.
I know.
So now we have access from the monitor screen, which is great.
Checking your maintenance tool log, and then once everything is good, you're ready to fire up. Turn it on.
Well, the good thing is too when you first when you just anytime when you do maintenance tool, you'll see if you have a unit that doesn't have power on.
Right.
Right.
You get the purple.
The purple or the pink or whatever it's called.
I'm colorblind.
Yeah, right. There you go. A red for error.
Yep.
So it'll let you know right away when you do that.
Yep.
I know this is pre my time with Mitsubishi, but if they didn't let you know if there was a power outage, right? Like
Oh, no.
used to.
It came up.
Yeah.
It didn't say anything.
It just didn't say anything.
It would be red.
It'd be red. And then when you go to our BC controller, look at our board, it'll be a red light saying, okay, everything's good, even though there's no power on because it's getting that power is getting supplied by the bus line.
Right, through them now.
So in a lot of exactly. So a lot of people are like, oh yeah, I got power on the BC. When in reality, you don't. That power is coming from the bus line.
Yeah.
So
Exactly.
One of the items when we talk about power and power outage, switch is on. All right, let's check it out. Switch is on.
Switch working?
Turn it on. Get your meter up there.
No.
I got no voltage between my line. L1, L2, I got no voltage.
No.
Okay. Well, what's your next step after that? I'm checking L1 to ground, L2 to ground to see if I have both legs going to that indoor unit or branch controller numerous times.
No.
Line's not tied in, but these are things that
going back to basics,
slowing down your install, and one of the things that I always tell people how to troubleshoot our systems, they have the 3 voltages. Got our 12-volt indoor unit going to our wall controllers.
Yep.
We got if there's a centralized controller involved, we have our voltage going on TB7 from our centralized controller, and then we have our bus line on our TB3 to our TB5s, TB2s, and everything. So a meter and 11-1 screwdriver will open up any panel, and that's all you need.
Yep.
Cordless drill helps, but that's
Yeah.
I used to carry one of those. They don't make it anymore. The small Makitas.
Yep.
They were compact. They had torque to them, and you could just put them in basically in your pocket.
Right.
You need a holster or
An
anything.
actual like electric screwdriver.
Yeah.
So once you start the system, then you start looking at data and so forth.
Yeah, we look at our data, and you guys could chime in on all your top 5s, your top 7s, or view what to look out for.
Yeah, I would say, you did more startups than I did, so maybe it's not as much of an issue. But my thought is the verifying of port assignments. Yes, we set all the dials, but it might be worthwhile to actually check if those dials are accurate, right? Is my dial set for 14 actually on port 14? Yep. And we have a process that we go through in class about how we want to do that, where we change the solenoid valve block position as opposed to the indoor unit from heating to cooling, because it's a lot easier to catch that way.
Absolutely.
So you really want to verify those port assignments. I remember Scott had somebody in his class. This was probably end of last year, and then he ended up posting on LinkedIn after going to the 3-day city multi class that you taught. He posted on LinkedIn that he had that exact problem in a hotel where there was 2 units swapped, and he had pictures of the maintenance tool. He went through the verifying port assignments and actually found 2 units crossed and was able to fix them.
We had that as an exercise, too.
Yeah, right.
Because if you turn all your indoor units on, all in cooling, you do your testing and everything, and leave, it's summertime. All of a sudden, you get to the shoulder months, and it's September, where you have fall, and then somebody wants to put their unit in the heat, and all of a sudden they got cooling coming out, and somebody else's room is in cooling. Guess what? Telltale sign.
Yeah, you want to definitely confirm those port assignments before you walk away from the job.
Definitely. Yep.
All right, cool. So we have our unit verified. We verified our port assignments.
Ready to go.
And, if we're going to take that next step, which obviously we all should be, which is that extended warranty process. First, we need 3 things, right? We need the DSB as built. When we say as built, that just means that whatever the DSB is showing exactly represents what was actually put in that particular
and that's critical.
System.
That's critical. So once it goes to the process, we talk about, looking at our targets and everything for verification for warranty, high pressure, low pressure, TH4, our TE, TCs, things like that. Once we're ready to go, we need to make sure that everything matches. Because if it doesn't match, because once it goes through the target phase of when we submit it in for warranty, it goes to our area service managers who review our maintenance tool files at 1 hour runtime.
Yeah.
and they make sure that we're operating within our ranges. That's sufficient enough for warranty.
Right.
After that point there, it's going to go off to our warranty department in Georgia, where they kind of match and make sure that the equipment that's on your maintenance tool file is the equipment that was actually sold.
Yeah. So with that DSB, right, it has to be as built. And if you deviate, there's a potential, especially with line set lengths, right? You start making that stuff up, you can run into issues where you aren't able to adequately run the system. You're going to see issues with pressures or discharge temperatures, things like that. But that DSB as built is one part of it. The other part is your system information that Gary already talked about is automatically saved now when we save our monitor data.
Yes.
And the system information is just that initial address screen. Once you do the initial search on that address screen, we save it. That's our system info. Now, with any version 5.5 or newer, we don't have to save it. We can just save our monitor data. It automatically saves the system info. Next, we want to make sure that we put that system into a test run for either heating or cooling. Doesn't matter, whatever's appropriate for the season. And we want to run it for 60 minutes. However, that 60 minutes doesn't start until we see ordinary mode on our control mode.
Yes.
So that, in my opinion, is a great time to start checking your pressures, your temperatures, as long as you've given it some time, right? If you're not in ordinary mode, if it's only been 15 minutes, I probably don't care as much.
Yeah,
Give it
depending
like
on how big
hour.
the job is, it may take 30 minutes or even an hour.
Yeah.
So I have a quick question on that. All right. So all of our units are online, right?
Yes.
All right. So what if you say you have a 10-ton, 120? Hypothetically, what if connected load on the system is 130? So are you still looking at targets on that point? Because now we're
On test run.
Yeah, test run, yeah.
So you have to be careful on that.
Because
Because
you
when you're
overconnect
looking
it.
for values, and Gary's going to go over this, if you're looking at test values and whatnot, points and what, we have to make sure that we're only bringing on 10 tons of cooling.
Right.
We can't making sure we're not going over the fact.
Well, what I would say is that if you have 130, just to keep math simple, if you have 130,000 BTUs connected to a 100,000 BTU outdoor unit, you're not going to magically make up that other 30,000 BTUs.
Correct.
However, is your outdoor unit going to start to starve itself of refrigerant and head pressure screw up?
No.
What you will see is those indoor coils might hold slightly higher superheats.
Correct. Yeah,
Right?
that's
There's
what I
not
mean for
enough
those.
liquid
Yeah,
refrigerant.
That's what I'm
But
talking
you
about.
should, more likely than not, you should see still, you hit your SC1, SC6 targets on the branch controller. Your outdoor unit's still going to do what it needs to do to maintain that 32 degree TE or 120 TC, depending on mode. But that obviously, because it's maintaining that target, I would imagine you'll see worse numbers on the indoor coils.
Yeah, and that's what I mean. That could allude to people thinking that the system's undercharged.
Yeah, low charge.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to note that, just be aware of that.
Yeah, the thing with you down here, Scott, you guys probably, city multi-jobs, they probably do overconnect a little bit.
Oh, yeah, they
because of partial load situations.
Oh, well, they
Up in
have,
the Northeast?
Oh, really?
It's not a problem.
Well, you figure.
So many. That's for a whole nother discussion.
Well, the thing
No,
is,
really,
in the
talk about,
Northeast, we get so cold that even
I
with
see
a
what you
hyperheat
mean.
unit, if you're underneath where we're at 100% capacity, you've
that makes sense.
overconnected that thing. Let's say it's negative 15 degrees outside. You're already not at 100% capacity of that outdoor unit. If you overconnected now, you've got all these indoor coils that are at like 70% capacity.
I would never even.
Yeah, so I always
because I
tell
don't deal
people
with
in the
cold.
Northeast,
we could talk.
no overconnect.
We can talk about that half
All right.
hour.
No,
on
that's
that,
making sense now. Yeah, okay.
That's something that can get people in trouble.
Yeah.
When you talk about kinetic capacity and when it's applied and when it's properly applied.
Yeah.
So, what kind of targets you look for?
I look at the high and lows, depending on if you're in, you're cooling, you're in heating. Typically around 102 pressure, and when we're looking at our kind of our targets, it's after 45 minutes, it's in that hour range. Otherwise, it has a mind of its own. The system. If you do it in heating, probably around 420 psi for just a target. TCTEs 32 on the TE, and on the TC around 100 and cooling. When it's in heating range, it's pretty much TC is at 18 degrees above ambient temperature. Those are the critical ones you're looking at. And the one I always used to stare at is TH4.
Yep.
Yeah.
TH4 160 to 200 while it's operating in test run, just to make sure that we're not overheating the compressor and things like that. So those are critical ones. And then also, if you look at your indoor units, where we at our TH2 when we're in cooling, those temperatures, within those ranges. And also we're looking at our higher temperatures on TH3 for when we're testing it and heating. So
Yep.
that's
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. I mean, I look at my TC, TE, TH4 because that tells me my high pressure, low pressure, compressor discharge. Branch controller, I'm looking at only 3 things: my SC1, my SC6, and really the value,
and superheat.
Yeah, the value isn't super concerning. I just want some, at least in the beginning stages, right? As long as there's some, that means I will have superheat at my indoor coils, right? If I don't have subcooling going on at my branch controller, there is no way that my indoor coil is going to perform.
Yep.
So it's just a matter of, taking a look at those things. In the first few minutes, however, like we were talking, we don't really want to look at data for the first hour, except TH4. Because if you've got a TH4 over 200 degrees in the first 10 minutes of operation, 15 minutes, I start to panic a little bit. Okay, why am I already overheating my compressor? Right. And so it's something that I would continue to monitor and see if it corrects itself or if that's something that just keeps taking off.
When you're thinking about startup, getting the bugs out of it, if everything goes right, you're not looking at a whole lot of much time is invested in doing that. But when you have addressing issues, wiring issues, just ball valves are closed, just things like that, you could be there all day for one system.
Yeah.
When you look at commissioning, I used to be able to knock out jobs. I used to carry 3 computers. I'd be plugged in and just knock it out. How are you doing so fast? Like, well, I could do 3 at a time within about an hour and a half.
Sure.
So, what I say, Gary, for when I start up, the first thing other than outside the targets, I tell the guys, first thing I want you to look at is compare 63HS1 and PS1 at the PC.
Sure.
That's
right away.
Exactly.
I want you to pay attention because you'll know if you have a restriction right then and there.
Yeah. And we're looking for what?
No more than 40 PSI.
40 or less.
40 or less. Yeah.
That's your largest pipe. That's your largest line. So when you start adding, why we need to know how many 90-degree fittings you have in there for pressure drops and what's going on. The longer the distance, the higher the drop, and
we can see what's appropriate.
Yeah, and I've had jobs where pipes are crossed, and people think now, like, how do you get them crossed? Things happen. It's Friday, tag them wrong. Different crew comes in on Monday.
Yep.
So
just a quick recap before we end this one. Once we've gotten that hour of test run, ordinary mode, both the system info and that hour of runtime are going to get exported from maintenance tool. Yep. You're going to put them into your Diamond System Builder as built. You fill out all the information with the asterisk under the extended warranty tab and project properties.
So you talked about the new update where when you say the runtime, it automatically says system info.
Correct.
When you export that, make sure we change the file name because it'll just copy each other.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. They overwrite each other. Yeah. And that's the thing is, so now 5.49, I had somebody in my class last week, 5.49 is the last version that did not automatically save that. If you try to open 5.49, it says it is out of date now. So now it is only that saves both. Yep.
Okay.
So if you try to open 5.49, at least in this gentleman's case, it said it was out of date. So it's pretty much all maintenance tool now is going to save both. So make sure when you're exporting those files, you got to give them a different name because it'll overwrite itself over and over. So just change the name.
I always like
to
tell when they have to do that is like put system info after the title.
Yeah.
So when it populates onto your desktop, it's system info.
Yep.
1 hour runtime.
Yep. Yeah.
ABC company, North building, South building, whatever it is.
So after that, like I said, you put those into your DSB. Extended warranty tab and project properties. Make sure all your red asterisks are filled out. As soon as you hit submit, it goes to our ASMs. They're looking at it. They're making sure everything checks out. You get your warranty authorization number as long as it's submitted within 45 days of startup.
The one thing about that is that you could track it because it's going to say submit it. It's going to tell you the stage that it's in. Because once it goes to the ASMs and they give it their blessing, it gets another little code on there. So it's like in process. And actually you can see the steps as it travels through the warranty process itself.
Yeah, you got it. All right. Well, I think that about does it. Where are we going tonight?
Actually, I don't know.
I don't think it has been discussed.
Oh,
yet.
the pizza place next to
yes,
or Taco Mac.
Where are we going?
The pizza place. That's like right next
Oh,
to
it's
it.
that black building. Yeah, right next to it. Yes.
I guess they're known for their bathrooms being a converted subway car.
So stand by.
Yeah.
Oh, wait a second.
That's what Steve said.
Are you going to take a phone in there and take a picture of it?
Yes. Why not?
Of course. Peeing on a subway. It's like just like being at home in Boston.
All right, guys.
Yeah. Anywhere else. We'll see you on the next one.
All right. Adios.